if you have CPTSD, then you dissociate. You just do, by nature. I'm going to tell you how, I'm going to tell you why. I'm Linda K. Gifford. I'm a CSA survivor. And specifically, if you have childhood sexual assault related CPTSD, then you should hang around and we'll work through my SPADES program, which is just the stuff I do every day that arose naturally out of the writing of the book that's about to be published that I've been working on for the past 3 years. After 22 years of research and various types of therapy and antidepressants and all the kind of crazy ass stuff that doesn't work for childhood sexual assault related CPTSD or any kind of CPTSD, I have arrived at a place of true healing, and today is the P in spades. So if you want to talk about the S in spades, then please look at last week's. It's in my YouTube library. Everything's got the same name now, pretty much. All my socials. So, last week I got into part 1 and 2, Wednesday, Thursday, of the S in spades. The shame is not yours. And I guess we should recap that too. But today is P, separate the past from the present, because it's the thing you have to do first all day, every day to make all the other things to come possible. If you're still stuck in the place of being all in the present chaos of confusion and stuffing everything into your gut and letting your heart hurt and not telling anyone, which is still fine, you don't have to, but not advocating for change. You know, people that just are accepting the status quo of being severely traumatized in their life, at least if you're happy, okay. But if you are not, then maybe you should change something. And even if you think you are, there are depths that I didn't know existed, especially when it comes to intimacy. And I'm going to talk all about that. We get really deep into that, and I counsel people on this too, one-on-one and in groups and however you want to do it. Love to speak, love to advocate. Give me a call. It's all up there. Anyway, I'm not selling anything. Say that right now. There's not going to be something for sale at the end of this. There will be a book and a workshop workbook that will be for sale eventually, but that's not a thing. They're a thing in the making. But all I want to do is have you start a $5 monthly subscription to sweetsurvivor.com. And with that, let's get into D. Or let's get into the program. As I said, S. First thing you have to do in realizing that the shame is not yours is to understand where shame comes from. And so I'm not going to do an hour like I did last week, but let's see if I can recap it in a bullet-pointed few minutes. A couple of minutes. Shame started out as a societal creation that I would say was not inherently harmful so much as helpful in establishing rules of standards of behavior. So this, as soon as people started coming together in civilizations, this happened. Also, we know that a patriarchal structure arose over a millennia. Not everywhere, though. And we'll talk about that later, but not today. But predominantly, the big, powerful, strong men, they get to call the shots, and they decided that we were property that could be commoditized, that could be bought and sold. They decided that we could be traded for cows, still done in parts of the world. They decided they could decide who we marry based on how it helps the family, and they could decide who we do not marry based on who we have a family feud with. This did happen to a friend of mine, and it broke my heart. She's raising 3 kids with a man she doesn't love in a state she doesn't want to be in, because her father called off her wedding because he got in a fight with the dude's dad. Right. I mean, it's insane. You've got to live for yourself. And that's why we're going to talk about dissociation. Because when you have been traumatized as a child, you naturally dissociate. You learn to compartmentalize. You play roles. This is why, some people in my life find it very hard to believe when I disclose that I have CPTSD and that it's a very big problem for me. Everything from being called, "You're crazy," and I'm like, duh, I think that was in the tagline. I'm pretty sure I led with that. But not crazy. I know what I'm saying. Yeah, it's a problem. I'm writing a book about it. I'm on live stream. I'm working with people. It's like not, it's because it's super fun to disclose all of this personal stuff. No, it's because when I realized, when I made real breakthroughs, my life changed. My life got so much better. It did, and I've been selling products made by women and community artisans from, various countries, several countries, since 2017 online. We never even closed during the pandemic. I switched over to selling toilet paper and masks and stuff at cost, and then got shut down by Facebook because that was too humanitarian. I guess it wasn't allowed. I'm like, seriously? So anyway, here we are though. All of that has morphed. If you've been with me all along, you know my mall store seasonal fair went online in 2017. We went into a pandemic, and my partner and his wife died of COVID. So, investor partner. So I'm on my own, renamed it feelgoodfairtrade.com, and then I decided to build the Earth 2.0 eco-friendly and fair shopping group. It became the Sweet Shopping Group just at the beginning of the month on my birthday, because now everything I do supports Sweet. And we are awaiting our nonprofit status so that we can fundraise for Sweet. And there's a $5 monthly subscription. You can already do it. Should be in the description if I did it all right. I'm a staff of one. I'm sure that's hard to tell. Anyway, dissociation. Let's get back to it. I'm going to separate the past from the present. Jumping in the rabbit hole of, I used to call it crazy, but I kind of realized that's insulting. I just am one to quickly use humor to make fun of myself. But to be more scholarly and serious, the rabbit hole of confusion that happens when we are confronted with a past traumatic memory that causes a complex post-traumatic stress syndrome event. So the event of our memory does not present as a memory. And this is what we need to educate our partners, our loved ones, our parents, our children. I'm writing that book, but in a very G-rated prevention type of book. Working on it already. Got like 3 lined up with the publishers, Survivor Realities and the one for institutions. I should add, not to blow my own horn, but just my method has helped so many people that I've got 3 university professors have asked me if they could use it for required reading. And that was over 2 years ago. And I had just started putting this together. So it's been a long process, and it extended for various reasons. Like I fell in love for the first time after 3 marriages and divorces that I thought were love, because I had done the work and I had realized that dissociating away from my own needs and my own desires made me role play in every part of my life, including my relationships. And the worst part about somebody with CPTSD is when they do this, it's not on purpose. We don't know that there's another level. I mean, how can you know that sex can exist, an intimacy, and, not necessarily sex, touching, physical bonding with another, however you like to be intimate with a partner that you really love, who really loves you, who you really feel understands you, whom you really understand. I know that's rare. But that type of relationship was not something that I or most people with CPTSD who have not confronted and learned how to turn their trauma into, instead of a gut-wrenching thing they have to shove back down inside themselves, but into an educated, oh, okay, I can see what this is. I now have a place to file away my memories. I'm going to make a mental file. In fact, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a sweet box, and you can buy it for a donation. I've been threatening to do this for a long time. Have the box in your mind where you're going to file away the knowledge. You're going to apply knowledge. You're going to apply to your emotions and to your experiences. You're going to apply knowledge, and it's going to change the way you think about it. But the biggest thing, back to the top, that we still have to confront is that moment when you feel it coming on, when you know something feels wrong. But most CPTSD sufferers don't, like, at that point, they just jump off into whatever it is they jump off into. You know, drugs, alcohol, sex, exercise, you know, it could be something healthy even. But if you're just distracting yourself from actually thinking about something in a way that becomes healthy, I don't like the word confronting something. It's so, it's like, no, you need to rethink what happened to you. It happened to a lot of people. I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry for me. But do not compare crosses. And I talked about this the other day, and I'll talk about it a lot. I'm going to talk about it now. You know, I'll recount the story. The first time someone said to me, I've been, you know, as a coach, as a person who was unofficially coaching, and before I was a neuro-linguistic practitioner, they're like, I was sexually harassed. Or assaulted. And I was like, that's terrible, you know. Tell me about it if you want to. And they're like, you know, my boss pinched my ass at work, and I haven't been able to sleep, and I'm so upset at work, and, you know, and it was very valid pain to them, and it affected their life just as, not, and almost, again, don't compare crosses. I almost just didn't. My first thought, to be honest, was, shut the fuck up. Seriously, you know, try being groomed and raped for years of your life and shared with cousins, married cousins, and just being so good at dissociating by then that you just, you know, the only way out is through, so you go away and then grow into your life of, when I do have sex with people, as soon as I feel like having it, you know, and I have a big sense of morality and decency about me, so I usually marry people, but like, it didn't arise from, I want to have sex with you so much as when that, or even if it did, when that feeling arose, a person who has been traumatized with childhood sexual assault, not just CPTSD, but sexual assault related CPTSD, they turn off. At that point, I remember feeling what I now know are sexual feelings at a time that I immediately associated them with confusion, guilt, shame, learning to not trust anybody, you know. So in the future, even if I felt those things, I just figured this out like in the last 3 years. That's what I'm so excited about it and why I want to tell everybody. Because I fell in love and I felt something. You know, I fell in love many times in my life. I didn't not love my husbands, but I didn't have much to give them. You know, looking back, I didn't know that because I didn't know I had CPTSD. We didn't have names for things. You know, I went through some antidepressants and gave each one up after a few pills because it wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want to be dead inside. And finally, when I found out that I had CPTSD, I could learn about dissociation and I could learn how I did it, why I did it. And there's a big neurological component, which we're going to totally break down tomorrow, although I will touch on it today. But suffice it to say, if your first sexual experience was not wanted, but you still, obviously not but, and let me flip the order of that. If you have sex, you feel it. If you have any sexual touching, you're going to feel it. It doesn't matter if you're 12. And then in adult life, when you have that feeling, it'll lead you into a relationship. But once you get there, then it shuts you down within the relationship. And now you're role playing. And I did that. You know, who knows if things could have been better with my husband's. I didn't know I was a mess. I was self-righteous. I was black and white, still am. I'm a person who realizes now that I have used my dissociative skills for good and evil against myself. And I don't want you to do that. So we have to talk about, you have to recognize what is good and what is evil. Again, we'll break down the neurological thing, but let's precurse it with good things you do dissociating are walking away from a bad situation, are saying, I won't take that bad thing anymore, whatever it is, your job, your spouse, your somebody being abusive to you on the street, whatever. Walking away, having boundaries, saying yes and no. And we talked about shame and guilt yesterday. Go back and review that because it tied in here, but I'm not going to do that now. So dissociation causes us to have to deal in the moment with what's in front of us. And if it is confusing, then we go to a character that can handle it. And I discovered in therapy over 20 years ago, I mean, I didn't even know. She came out. I woke up in the corner, not woke up, but I came to awareness. I remembered what had happened in crouching in the corner of my therapist's office, but the whole room stunk like a stink bomb. It was like a stink bug. It was horrifying. And I had met, and like I said, I remember what happened in that corner, but I was another person. I was who I now call little girl. And I call her little girl in part because my first husband called me little girl, and it made me not want to have sex with him. You know, that was another thing. Even like I said, when you start to have sex, your feelings shut down because you associated them with guilt and confusion and shame at such a young age that your brain has defaulted. And I mean, your brain has defaulted. It's a wiring issue. It's not a choice, you know. But let me jump in there and say, the one thing about PTSD and CPTSD that is different from a person who is neurodivergent, because we did grow different connections. Our brains are measurably different. You know, there is an exaggeration of the amygdala. There's a shrinkage of the hippocampus. There's, in the layman's terms, what you're experiencing is too horrifying to process properly. So you've still got all the memories, but you're not going to put them in a way that makes you able to like deal with it rationally. Hence the PTSD or CPTSD arising from triggers. And they're everywhere. They're everywhere. It can be a sight. It can be a smell. It can be nothing, as I've said before. It can be just a butterfly flying gracefully. It can drift into some thought of, and suddenly you're seeing a past experience. You're feeling it. You're seeing it, but it's more than seeing. You're feeling it come on. And I literally can feel it now that I've really worked at identifying it. This is the hardest thing. This is what I call the rabbit hole. This is the line, the cliff, the edge, call it what you want. This is where the buck stops. When you feel dysregulated, I'm going to explain that in a minute. When you feel dysregulated, you've got to identify it and start immediately doing things to stop it. And it's very simple what stops it. It works every time for me. It's worked every time for everybody I've taught it to, they say. I mean, I haven't checked in with them to make sure it was every time, but all positive feedback. And I learned this from my own counselor, one of my first counselor who, and lifelong still is one of them, who specializes in CPTSD. My name is Linda. It's September, 20th, 2023. I have 3 children. That's a wall. That's a curtain. I have lights in my face and they are hot. I want to turn on the fan, but it'll be too loud. I'm stating things that are just what is. Because right now I'm so absorbed in both the present that I'm living in and this sensation that's about to turn into a full-on visual and sensation takeover of my brain if I let it, right? At that point, you got to pull back out. And the way to do that, just try it. It's your homework. When you start to think a negative thought, you have to think a better thought. Abraham Hicks is, just don't worry about that. But Esther Hicks, who presents Abraham, says, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking. And that's true. And she also says, I don't know how she breaks it down to 16 seconds, but you've got like 16 seconds of thinking a certain kind of thought before you'll run down that avenue. So as soon as you start to think a thought you don't want to think or have a feeling you don't want to feel, interrupt yourself And you can't just immediately say to yourself, oh, I don't want to think that thought. That's not good for me. This is where I got hung up for a long time. I'd be like, don't do that. Then you kick your own ass all the time. I shouldn't say that. Then you're even more guilty and shameful, which is your default mode, because with CPTSD, we are shame-based. And we talked about that in the first 2 videos last week, so please refer to them. I'm not going to have time for that right now. But so default mode, I'm bad. Everything that's happening to me is somehow my own fault. This carries through into adulthood. It carries through into relationships. The sexual shutdown, we don't even know it's there because we become performance artists and we think that we're, and I thought, like I said before, I thought I was good at it and didn't hate it. I didn't, but it's a whole different thing when you rediscover sensation on your own terms, when you rediscover sexual or any kind of intimacy with another human on your own terms and with a little work under your belt. So back to get to that point, you can't present as crazy. Again, confused is a better word, but I'm going to say crazy because my exes would say that I either, both, that I should be a lawyer and that I can be crazy. And it's like, yes and yes. Crazy feels good if you get full on crazy, like I was saying, drugging, drinking, running, exercising, crafting, whatever it is you do. Losing yourself in something feels way better than thinking about what you're doing. But when you're having an event come on, that's a whole nother ballgame now. That party, the thought party's over. You need to just jump right into, that's a doorknob, that's a light, I live here, I've got a cat. I don't even have a cat. I don't know why I said that. So if you do that, it will pull you back out, and then you need to redirect your mind. And these are things you do. And that's the harsh part of where I'm going with dissociation. You can't just keep going to therapy and telling everybody about it and expect to get better. You can't just talk about it. You can't lead with it in conversations and tell everyone you meet that's what happened to you. I lived in Springfield, Illinois for close to 30 years, and there are very few people that knew what had happened to me for a very long time. It's not something I ever talked about. And I want y'all to get over that, too. That's the E in spades, educate and advocate. But we'll get there. We're still on P, separate the past from the present. So, again, when you hit that rabbit hole of crazy, talk your way back out. And the way to recognize it, it's not a solid thought. It's a feeling that things aren't right. And when you start hearing things come out of your mouth and feel like you're watching them and you wish you could stop saying them, but you can't, they continue. You will say things you do not mean. There are times, not very often anymore, but there are times when I'm kicking my own ass so hard that I have my alter rage comes out. And I met rage, and that's a whole nother, that's a long one. I met rage in my blackout that started this book. I actually, after a couple of news stories just blew my mind, I cried and cried and cried on the patio that I don't even remember, wasn't drunk, anything like that. And then I came in and just full on bashed up the room and threw out my partner violently, never to return. I told him he wanted to stay. I wouldn't let him. I'm like, no, this is sick and wrong. Everything's wrong. Everything has to change at this point. So there was I didn't know what had happened until the next morning. And I woke up battered and bruised and my eyes stuck together. And so I called my partner at work and asked, and I was assured that what I just told you had gone down. And that's when I said, this needs to end. Got to get on with it. Got to change this picture. Got to heal myself so that I can be something to somebody else, And this was not close partner, but a friend, person close enough to me to know that and know that we weren't right for each other and to move along. And then all doorways opened for me, because that was the final step for me was freeing myself to have an actual relationship with someone that wasn't just a sexual aside, to care. And to do that, I had to care about me. So rage, I see him through like a tunnel vision. I can see myself attacking, like coming down with my fist, not trying to kill, but, coming down with my fist on my then kind of boyfriend in the bed. And he's just reading, being perfectly innocent. And I realized that was another person. And that was rage. And I have since done counseling and therapy. And rage isn't a huge part of my life. But when I get dysregulated, rage tells me I'm a piece of shit. Get up, get on with it. Rage forces me to act. Rage tells me, fuck everybody, fuck you, to little girl, get up. You can't be like this. Rage gets in people's face and says things they don't mean. So back to where I started this, you'll say things, you'll hear them coming out of your mouth when you're beginning to have a dysregulated moment right before what can turn into an actual full-on CPTSD event. And when you feel that dysregulation, when you hear voices in your head saying things you don't want to hear, or you actually are in the unfortunate incident of hearing them come out of your own mouth to somebody you love, and you're thinking everything inside you, Linda, is screaming, no, I don't mean that. And rage has just got control. Rage is like, no, I got this. And I'm like, no, stop. And rage is like, no, I got this. And the little girl's like, because, the little girl takes it all and hides and runs away. So these ultras save me. And now that I've met them, I don't go into them anymore. We all hang out together pretty much. Okay, rage can happen, but very rarely. And not to any huge extent. Rage is just more like an ass kicker. Rage is like, you drop a glass, dumbass, instead of, oh, you dropped a glass. Everything in a shame-based person becomes exaggerated. Trauma compounds, Today, I'm very excitable today. It's not even my trauma so much as my loved one's trauma, but how it goes with loved ones. It's that care part makes you care. My partner's daughter's 15-year-old cat died last night. Not tragically, but it's always tragic when you lose people you love, and our animals are people, And then my son today woke up and had been really sick last night and thrown up and took a COVID test, and he's positive and sick as a dog again. And I'm out of town at the moment and can't help him. And so I'm like, part of me, the weird thing is it'll bring up memories of my childhood that have nothing to do with it. And that's because trauma compounds. And dissociation, the more you do it, the more you let that happen. So learning to nip it in the bud, learning what it is, how it happens, is very important. Very important to you. So we're going to talk tomorrow about the neurological part. I'm going to dip into that now, though. So a little preview. Okay. Well, I kind of did earlier. Maybe it's a recap. I don't know. I make outlines, but I don't look at them. I haven't looked at it once. I just go back and see what I missed and talk about it tomorrow. So, your brain. I talked about how you experience, when you experience a traumatic experience, especially in childhood, especially when it's repeated, or only when it's repeated, hence complex, that's the definition. It was repeated over and over, something that made you feel unsafe, threatened in some way, that was constant, that you couldn't get away, no escape from, right? And you didn't think there was, at least because you're a little child and you don't know that. So that CPTSD experience will, as I was saying, make people think you're crazy. Then they're going to push away from you, and you have to realize that it is your responsibility. Your responsibility to fix yourself. And you can, because it's just a neural connectivity problem. Boom, you can reconnect. Because we had to dissociate. We didn't grow as many of the connections in the right amounts. There are a whole lot of chemicals involved that are, in studies show now, are shifted, that are in imbalance, but across the board in people with CPTSD, showing real physiological changes, really big ones too. Like I said earlier, the exaggeration of the amygdala and the shrinkage of the hippocampus. Well, you know, that's like the amygdala is your fight or flight, it's your alarm center. It's like, yeah. So it's big, you know. I haven't slept more than 3 to 5 hours a night my entire adult life, or child life for that matter. I am hypervigilant. I've been through every drug in the book for sleep, and it didn't work. My brain cannot be turned off because I am hypervigilant. Only recently, in a partnership where I don't feel threatened by my partner, because through my 3 marriages, they weren't violent. Well, one of them was. 2 of them were, actually. But not all the time, just once in a while. But I didn't feel safe. And if you don't feel safe, then the bed is not a safe place and the home is not a safe place. And feeling safe has allowed me to get up to like 5 hours a night, maybe 6 even, once in a blue moon. But hypervigilance, alterations in opioid receptors, serotonin levels are different, amino acids are different. What do you do, right? Don't get depressed. Don't give up. This is the part where you get to change. They have such amazing results with EMDR that, and I haven't done it and I'm about to. One experience of EMDR, which is essentially recounting what happened to you while moving your eyes back and forth. Now, I have Asperger's. I'm a high functioning autistic, and I think that would be very, I don't know if my brain could take it. It's part of the reason I haven't done it, but I might try. But what worked for me, and I highly recommend, is trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, because talk therapy, and I am not a doctor. This is the part where I say I am not a doctor. If you take medicine, never, ever, ever stop taking any kind of a doctor-prescribed medicine that you're supposed to take without your doctor's knowledge and without working out a plan to stop it. Whether they approve or not, you at least have to work out a proper plan, because it's dangerous. It can make you suicidal. It can be physically harmful. Don't do that thing. But with that in mind, people are misdiagnosed and overtreated constantly with antidepressants, which just further inhibit your ability to feel and to associate instead of dissociate, when what they really need is trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. And in the case of childhood sexual assault and post-traumatic stress, there's more and more overwhelming evidence that talk therapy, I mean, yes, you need to get it out. But people, they don't get better, then they go to another counselor and they tell it all over again, then they go to a therapist and they tell it all over again, they go to a preacher, they tell it all over again, they go to Aunt Susan, who used to be a psychologist that knows their mom, they do it all over again, and they're just like wearing themselves out, telling their story in their life and never feeling any better. And Crappychildhoodfairy talks about this a lot, so credit given where credit is due. Go watch Anna Runkle, the Crappychildhoodfairy. I watch all of her stuff. It is CPTSD specific. I am childhood sexual assault, CPTSD specific. But everything she says that I've ever heard 100% applies to us. It's a jumping off point. So, all hail Crappychildhoodfairy. I've even got her in my hashtags. Let me also throw in, speaking of hashtags, RAINN. If you need to talk to someone now or find out what resources are available to you now or in the immediate future, please get a hold of RAINN, RAINN. The number is 1-800-656-HOPE, which I believe is 4763, or 467, 656-HOPE, that for sure. And it will take you to a regional, it'll automatically direct you to a regional center. And if you have information, like they say, if you see something, say something. No, if you see something, do something. So if you have information and you think trafficking is going on, you see something unusual in your neighborhood, I'm not saying go arrest, pop your neighbors on a suspicion, but Thorn, founded by Ashton Kutcher and various others, has been in existence for a very long time and have built into a cyber-capable network that works with local, regional, federal, and international law enforcement, military, and private agencies all at the same time. So we can get information to them. You can get information to Thorn and they can look into it without anybody innocent getting hurt. But wouldn't you rather err to caution? I mean, on the part of the victim who might be being trafficked or abused or locked in the basement or God knows what. Just keep your eyes open, okay? Look out for each other. That's very important. So, anyway, yes, there are ways to change to improve. Let's say you're not going to go back to being like someone that was never traumatized in their childhood. We can't, change your brain that much, but we can definitely grow new connectivity that teaches us to think before we act in an unfiltered way, and that teaches us to recognize if something is a voice in our head saying something that we don't think our mind and heart really mean, and recognize if something's kicking our ass and go, wait, I'm a human. I don't need to walk around saying mean things to myself all day every time I do something wrong. So dissociate. Where I'll leave it today, and we'll get deeper tomorrow in society and a lot more stuff. But what I want you to do is kind of just examine, just think about what's going on in your head. Think about what's actually going. Stop. What was it? Say it was a joke. It was a joke, but and it was a bad joke that involved disparaging against women. But I'm going to throw that out and make it my own joke and say, don't say the first or second thing that comes into your head. Wait for number 3. And people with CPTSD tend to be unfiltered because there's just so much dysregulation. I mean, not always. I mean, we can freaking excel at everything, be the best workers and achieve all the awards and kick ass. That's why people are like, don't even believe it half the time if an overachieving person says, yeah, and I was sexually assaulted for years and didn't tell anybody. They're like, you're not that stupid. It's like, I believe that. And I didn't tell anybody. I knew they'd think that was stupid. I knew I was ruined because society taught me that. We're going to talk about that's what I was saying we're going to talk about tomorrow. So you are not ruined. Society, the concept of virginity is a social construct created by a patriarchal bunch of people with dicks who decided that whether they put it in or out of you changed who you were. All right, there's a meme in my trailer. And how about that trailer? Yeah, Chinchilla. Shout out to Chinchilla for just the perfect words for my song. Please go check out my trailer and play it 80,000 times. Thank you. No, you get banned for that, actually. But you can organically watch it and it's only a minute, So, but I really love that. I really did. So we'll do more on all of that tomorrow. I need to do some revisions. We've got some new store changes coming up. The store is rolling out some new products and getting rid of a lot of them. Please check out our sustainable home cleaning line and get some personal care from Plantish because it's going to go away on October 15th unless someone discovers that it exists, that it's an amazing price, and that the products are fantastic, right? So please go check out the Super Planet shop at sweetsurvivor.com. Please start a $5 monthly subscription. And please, the hell, don't kick your own ass. Okay? You are worthy just as much as anyone, and you are not a body. You have a body, and you can learn to look at what happened to you in a way that becomes more literary and less, I'm going to jump at the rabbit hole crazy. So I'm going to talk to you tomorrow. Always a challenge to end these 2 streams. I just hit enough subscribers, which is 50. Yeah, I've only used it as a library before, but right now I actually need subscribers. So please help me with that. I mean, I need it because it'll help us spread and raise money, and the more $5 monthly subscriptions start, the better. Oh my God, I got to throw in there. There's a woman in Australia, Marita. I'm not going to even try to say her last name right now, but look on my thread. I posted her story. She contacted me. She finally, and they did a whole documentary, a major documentary on her. And I'm going to say reality, not her story, because it was well documented at the time by multiple people, by medical professionals ever since, what had happened to her in childhood at the hands of 2 wealthy, powerful men in New Zealand who raped her as a child. She finally sued them. And in the end, she got stuck despite overwhelming testimony and evidence. She now owes them $100,000 legal fees. And they were both let go. So that's what's going on in the world. Please support Sweet Survivor. I really need you to. I can't help people if I don't have money. Money. But it's not for me. It's going to move through me. You know, I do like to eat. That's also something. So, all right. I'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 or thereabouts. Hopefully we'll get the YouTube mobile streaming thing going tomorrow if they've freed me from the cage. Goodbye. Till then. I am sure I want to end the stream. You always ask, are you sure? I'm sure. Okay, and this one's on top. You always get the great chin shot. Sorry about that. Are we off? Okay. Oh, yes, end.